Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM. And also online at mykcr.org.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
All right, folks, this is Thunder Thursday.
Ba 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 boom!
Flash! That's very good. Or we could call the show Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, I know. We keep going back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
That's you like Flash and Boom still?
Yeah, I like that. And the reason why I like that is I think of you every once in a while because my kids love to watch Last Time. I'm sure they're tuning in this morning, and
cool.
I got made fun of for a very long time
You
about
did?
the
Why?
ba ba boom. They
That's Harry.
Every once in a while they'll throw that in there and make fun of me.
Ma ba ba boom, Mom. That's a homage to Harrington. He's going to be calling in at 7:30. Scott Harrington today, Lawrence. So that's good, man. Looks like you got a good haircut there. I'm liking it. I'm digging the haircut. That? Yes.
Florida special.
Who?
A Florida special.
A Florida special.
Yeah,
So
right.
what's a Florida special?
I was in Florida over the weekend.
That's so. Oh, I'm very jealous.
How are they doing down there?
Like it's back to normal.
Really?
Yeah. Well, Florida's a Republican state. So
Yeah. So
they
they're
don't really listen to Sleepy Joe.
Masks or not a whole lot of masks?
Yeah, just like us, but you don't have to wear them outside. But yeah, you got to wear them into the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Actually, when you're at a bar, or I was at the track on Sunday or Saturday because I went to Gulfstream on Saturday. If you're standing at the bar, you got to keep your mask on.
Oh, no kidding.
If you want to take a sip, you just pull it off. You take a drink of your beer,
right.
put your mask
Really?
right back on.
If everything else is semi-normal,
Yeah,
I
and
can
the
deal
sun
with
is
that.
shining.
Sun is shining.
Yeah.
My parents are they're in Florida for the winter.
And that whole thing with Governor Cuomo about how you got to do all this and have a test and have your paperwork ready, how they're going to check you and you can't come back. How they remember he said over Thanksgiving, we're not going to let you into the state. That's all BS.
Yeah.
I had all my stuff ready to go, my negative test. I got up early Sunday morning, went to
do
Boca Raton because that was
Nobody
the only place.
looked at it.
Huh?
Anybody look at your stuff then? Did they look at it?
There was no one even there to look at it.
Oh, my
But I
gosh.
got up early to go get the rapid test on Sunday morning because they said you can't land in New York without a negative COVID test. So I was like, let me go get my test. So I went and got the rapid one. They text you in 18 minutes and tell you whether you passed or failed. I passed. So you can, you can rest easy now.
You're clean. You're not.
But you have to fill out this with that negative test. You have to have a travel
log.
You have to go online and fill out New York State's travel requirement health form, which is 9 pages long on your phone.
Yeah.
Then you got to have both of those ready to go when you get. So I sat in the first seat on the plane.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get into this line because it takes 15 or 20 minutes to go through it. There was no one even there.
Oh my gosh!
I'm walking around in circles. I'm
what airline did you fly?
I'm like, I went. I spent a couple hours out of my day Sunday morning to get online for this rapid test because the cars were deep and
at least
whatever.
you're healthy.
But I had
and
a
safe.
good time.
So actually, I actually have on the flip side, my parents they go back and forth.
Where do they go? What part?
Cape Coral. So my parents come home. This was a couple months ago. I can't even remember. Maybe December. They were down there for a month, and they flew into Newburgh, and there's handwritten paperwork. So my mom fills it out, and maybe she did this on purpose, maybe she didn't. I'm not going to say on the air, but she did not leave her phone number.
Okay.
So she gets home, and 2 days later, my brother and I are at work, and his phone rings, contact tracing.
Oh, Lord.
So they went online, did research, found my brother's phone number, and got to get my mother's phone number. So I think it's really hit or miss how,
random. Maybe
They've
random.
actually, no, it is. And they used to stand there and with the piece of paper and make you fill it out. And if you walk past them, they said they're going to fine you and do all that. But yeah,
Was the airport
I forgot
crowded,
to leave
or-
my phone number back in October when I went, and they found
had
it
it.
and they texted me.
Yeah.
Lawrence, was the airport crowded or not?
Oh my God! When I flew from Fort Lauderdale on the way back, I flew from Fort Lauderdale to Chicago because I couldn't. I usually go through Baltimore because
Right.
Southwest doesn't fly direct into
Right.
Albany, so I had to go through Chicago. There was 300 people on the plane.
Wow.
Wow.
But you know what's so weird about being on an
Almost like
airplane?
normal.
Kind of good.
Yeah.
No, it is good. It
Yeah.
was great. But you know what's so weird about being on an airplane prior to COVID? They were serving drinks and snacks and food, and people were getting sauced up, drinking Bloody Marys, having a good old time. Now you get on an airplane, and it's like
church.
It's like church.
Silent.
No one talks.
Yeah.
Everybody sits there and
That's
reads their paper. I
eerie.
mean, it is like the most creepiest thing for me. Not being able to talk for
No
3
mask
hours.
on
I'm
the
like
plane?
going nuts,
No mask
dude.
on the plane?
No, you got to wear a mask the whole time.
You gotta wear a
From
mask the whole time.
the whole time, the airport, everything. And if you take it off, well, I
They
wouldn't
nail you.
advise
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
No, they.
You're getting body
I mean,
slammed
no,
if you
if
take
they
it
give
off.
Right, exactly.
When
Yeah.
they give you a snack, like they'll give you a little bag of chips, you can take it off then and eat it.
Okay.
But people don't even take the food.
Wow.
But I'm surprised that was a full flight and the airport was crowded.
People,
That's good.
I mean,
That's good to hear.
So I-
We're back to
unless you
normal.
live in New York under dictator Cuomo,
Yeah.
the rest of the world seems pretty,
Yeah.
Right.
normal. I mean, you still have to wear your mask, and you should, but
Yeah. Well, a lot of rules.
yeah, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see moving forward. A lot of people are asking, like, are you going to have a vaccine to get on a plane?
Yeah, I think it's going to get to that.
No, I don't
don't?
know if it'll get to that. I
Might.
I think half of America isn't going to get the vaccine. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Could be.
I had a few friends in Florida that told me they weren't getting it. I'm like, what are you, stupid? Like, don't you want to go to Giant games and go here and go there?
Yeah.
If you got a card that says you're free and clear of this thing, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you go get it? He's like,
I'm-
all the
I don't
side
think I'll
effects. I'm like, dude.
Are you going to get one?
Probably. Only because I'm, from the healthcare field and I'm used to taking flu shots over the years and yeah.
A friend of mine got it. She's a teacher. She was fine. No side effects. Another friend of mine got it in Florida. Her arm, she's also a teacher too. Her arm swelled up for like an hour.
Yeah.
Just like, not a lot, just like a little bit. But sometimes when I get a flu shot, it hurts
get
for
the
a couple
same-
hours.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
you get the same
it's
reaction.
sore. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, hopefully, I think if it's going to be another tool to get us back to normal, then I think go for it. Even if it's 50% or 2/3 of the population to get it,
Yeah. Yeah, the vulnerable population, obviously.
needs
These
it,
that,
right.
protects them, and yeah.
the over 65 crowd, of which I'm in.
Well, you don't look at it. That makes you feel any better.
No, your dad? No.
My dad is 65.
Okay, boom.
And he's
Yeah, I
boom
think
right
we're-
on the dot.
Yeah.
Right on the dot.
So, yeah, anyway, we'll see what happens. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing. And Kingstonian, we mentioned
Yeah,
Kingstonian earlier. That's
Kingstonian.
great news. Probably not a shovel in the ground this year, but that would be great if it is. But, there's other red tape and stuff they need to go through, but not necessarily approval. But
No, it's good to go now, right?
no, it's good to go, but
yeah.
they still have to file and do a whole bunch of
Right,
stuff.
but they got the tax breaks. The Common Council approved it.
Yep. So
Right.
that's good
So
news.
good for them. I mean,
That's great
if they
news.
didn't do that and they did deny it, I don't see any other developer moving to Ulster County and trying to
Yeah.
get a project going.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to think about
No,
our
that
kids
would've
and
been-
stuff like that. I mean,
No.
you got to let the town
We
grow.
were just talking about Williams Lake, one that didn't go, the one that Scott, AVR, the one that Scott was working for.
Scenic Hudson ended up buying
Oh,
that property.
one didn't go.
Yep.
I mean, there's a litany. So we're going to talk to Tim Wiedemann a little bit later on from the Ulster County Economic Development Department, and we'll see, what he's working on, what the county's working on. I mean, look, you got to remain optimistic. This one got through by a lot of, consternation, but it got through. There's
And I think what was different about this, and I know I said this last time, is you've got local people
Local
involved, and
developers,
so
right,
there's a
right.
little bit of a trust factor. I think with they're going to do the right thing for the community because
Right.
they live among us. So if
have
they don't,
shown that. They have a track record
Yeah,
of
they have a
doing
track-
that.
yeah,
So
they
it's
both
not
have.
like they're from
They're invested.
Timbuktu and
Yeah.
just going to come in
Build and leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what's happening? We talked a little bit about the task force, but what's happening with Concern Kingston? What are you all?
So so I haven't been on the air since Christmas Eve was the last
Well,
time.
right,
It's
right,
been a
right.
month.
Right.
So after we left, as you know, and you were there, Concern Kingston organized a vigil
Right.
at Deet Stadium,
Right.
and it was a pretty good
That was
turnout.
great. Yep, it was excellent.
I was really, really pleased to see the New York State Trooper Captain Appleton stood up there with us.
There was a fair amount,
sheriff
Yep.
and troopers,
Right.
and they stood, which I think was
Sheriff Figueroa was
really
there.
good. Yep, the chief was there, the mayor
Tinty.
was there, so that was good. Since then, we've been kind of working on what we can do as a community. As you know, over Christmas time, we did the 12 Days of Christmas, showed
Right.
appreciation to all the different law enforcement. But since then, we've kind of been working on community and how we can reach some of these kids, particularly in a time during the pandemic where, there's a lot of time stuck at home in these neighborhoods where these crimes are going on.
Right.
So one of the things I've been speaking with Dan Whalen of the Boys and Girls Club. I went over there a couple times over break, and he's got a great initiative where he's trying to attract business owners to try to match up and see if there's someone at the Boys and Girls Club.
Right, mentoring almost, right? A little
Well,
mentoring
no,
program? Not
actually,
really.
it more like employment. Even
Oh,
if it's like an
okay.
internship.
Right,
I
right,
believe,
right.
I want to say it's his girlfriend that works
Okay.
at Diamond Mills. And so, they're talking about maybe the food industry.
Brittany? No, there's Brienne, Brittany.
I think it's Brittany. I
Yeah,
want to say it's
yeah,
Brittany.
there's a couple of Bs there.
Yeah. And I actually, being in the construction industry, he said, actually, I have somebody for you. So I actually hired someone
Oh,
a
cool.
couple weeks ago, and he's great. It's
Good.
working out well. Really
Good,
hard
good.
worker. But there's something, if I hadn't walked in there, I
Yeah.
never would have met
Yeah.
this person.
Right.
So, and then I was contacted by a woman. She's the old Dysing's closed on Broadway.
Right.
And she is going to be opening up a deli. So she said, that's
cool.
something, I think more, I don't know, employment,
Hopefully
but.
an Italian
shadow-
deli,
yeah.
which we need. Just saying.
Yeah. So a lot of things like that. Gene Jacobs stood up and did the Hodge Center. As you know, a lot of these kids are going to the Hodge Center, or they're doing their schooling at the Hodge Center or Boys and Girls Club. So
Right.
there was a need. A lot of the headsets had broken. As you know, if you're in a room with kids, you need headsets
Yeah.
because you can't have
Sure.
everybody. So our community really stepped up, and there's this thing through Amazon.
Smile.
No,
Amazon
I do Smile, but it's where people, like for instance, my mother from Florida, she ordered 5 headsets on Amazon and had it sent. It's almost like a wish list, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So it made it really easy.
Like a bridal registry.
Yeah, almost like a bridal registry. Yeah, no blenders.
No blenders. Right, no blenders. Right.
So so we've been doing stuff like that. And as very publicly, I came out. I had reached out to the mayor. As you know, there were more
Right.
shots fired last week. Still
Right.
haven't heard anything. Well, I did hear back.
Yeah, I saw the exchange in Facebook, your letter, his letter. And, I think you've got to find some common ground and a willingness to have a dialogue, right? I mean, and a continued dialogue, not just a one and done.
Yeah.
It's got to be ongoing. And so I think, keep your efforts up. We talked about the task force. I mean, the police task force that was apparently just came out with a report not too long ago. So maybe you can speak to that.
Yes. So we were kind of speaking a little bit
Yeah,
about
off
this
the
before
air.
we came on the air. So Governor Cuomo, I believe this started last year.
Okay.
He had asked 600 local police agencies to formulate a task force where they could re-envision policing, come up with some changes, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think in light of everything that's happened nationally, it's important.
Right.
And so I was actually, I don't really listen to Cuomo much, but my husband kind of nudged me last Friday and said, you should really listen to this one section of Cuomo last Friday. And he came on and said, that this is one of the things that he's not trying to micromanage, but, he's not going to tell communities how to police themselves. They
Right.
need to figure that out. And so he was saying, what might work in Binghamton isn't going to work in New York City.
Right.
And, I've been kind of following this task force, if you will. There's been public hearings. And I think one of the things, and I know I'm not alone, that the community is kind of upset with is that, the defund the police or the anti-police should absolutely be at the table. But unfortunately, it seems like they have the whole table, pretty much have the whole table in this example. So, I was a little disheartened listening that, they're speaking a lot about what's going on nationally and not what's going on here.
Right.
So that's a little concerning to me. There's this big push for them to remove SROs. I'm completely
Right. Yep.
against that. So now it goes to the Common Council, and the Common Council has to vote on it. So, but there will be a public hearing beforehand. An
Is there a
opportunity for-
replacement suggestion, or is it just the way it used to be then? In other words, if they remove the SRO, then is it school security? Is it the Wild West? Is it what? No.
Mental health counselors.
Not the health counselors, okay. Good idea, after the fact. Oh, Lord, okay. So, and the other question I would have is any folks that are interested in defunding the police, what does that really mean? Does that mean there are no police anywhere ever, or what does it mean? Do you know what it means?
I do know what it means, and I think you're going to be shocked. I don't want to say I agree with defunding the police,
Right.
but what I want to say is, and listening, like for instance, there was one person that spoke on this task force. Defunding the police. They talk a lot about mental health,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
I
I
get
think
that.
mental health really should be supplemental
Yeah,
to
sure.
the police.
Sure.
So I did hear one person during one presentation where he was talking about, if there's a mental health call, there should be a counselor that goes there. And so the city has $100,000 to implement whatever they can that comes out of this task force.
Right.
Okay. So one of the things is kind of, if you will, creating this mental health department. What are you going to do with $100,000?
Yeah, not much.
Maybe one person, right?
Yeah.
So my thing was, when I spoke at a public hearing, is we already have a mental health office.
Yeah, right.
That's at the county level.
Right.
And there's a need for these things outside of the city of Kingston. We need them in town of Ulster. We need them in Ellenville. So I think.
So defund police doesn't mean that there will be zero law enforcement.
Well-
I mean, is that, so there's no City of Kingston police.
Well, some
there's
people.
there's no, I mean, that's a lawless society then. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean,
No, absolutely.
maybe I need to have a dialogue with someone who is in favor of this, because I don't really get it at all. That means no more, patrol cars. That means no more what? I mean,
means Candyland.
That
Okay,
means
if we
the
lived in
gangs of New
Candyland.
York come up here and just annihilate people. I mean, there's no. What do they then use the National Guard if there's a problem? I don't understand the concept. Maybe I'll have to do some more research on it.
So there's a group of people that feel as though what's really needed is that, like, giving these people a place to live, housing is going to.
Okay, so that's a social restructure, but not defunding a law enforcement.
Right.
If you want to.
What they need to do, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go
No,
ahead.
go-
What they need to do is they need to get rid of that bail reform and bring back, that'll stop the crime right there. If people think,
Yeah.
they're going to go to
Right,
jail
right.
for doing bad things, I bet you the crime will drop in half.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a
Well, I
big
think they're
problem.
working on that.
In New
Bail
York
reform
State,
thing
in New
is
York State
stupid.
right now, the criminals are laughing at us.
Exactly.
It's become a complete laughing
And let's,
stock.
let's be thankful we don't live in like Crown Heights, Brooklyn either, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a war zone every day.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm
No,
not trying
absolutely.
to single out Brooklyn, but if you read the Post or read the Daily News, it's like the crime rate is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in New York City's thing, they know that the mayor doesn't. The cops know that the mayor doesn't have his back. So at least Noble has the city, the city of Kingston police behind his back. We should be fortunate.
It just, to me, is mind-boggling that anyone would even consider not having law enforcement in a civilized world. I mean, I'm sorry. And if there's, and I've said this before, and our guest at 7:30, he's actually ready to come on any minute. He's chomping at the bit.
Oh, gosh.
Scott Harrington. All right, so
but everybody's asking what can the mayor do, and what you're saying about bail reform is that's one thing I feel he can do. He's not responsible for the judicial aspect of it, but what he could do is he could stand up. And he could say, listen, as the leader of the city, these state laws are making it really difficult to keep my city safe.
Right.
Kevin Cahill, I need you to sponsor a bill to amend bail reform. He needs to use his platform as the leader of this city.
And some of the top cops agree that this thing is not going to work. We have to go back to the original way.
I know at the national level it's turned very Republican versus Democrat. And there's such a huge divide, and maybe in the state too, maybe in our local communities too. Is it that, or is it just, we all live in this community together? I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. Everybody wants the same. Everybody wants to be safe. Everyone wants to have the ability to make a living, take care of their family, do things, enjoy life. That's what everybody wants. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, communist, socialist, Martian. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So, and if people don't have an opportunity to do that, look, the Italian immigrants, the Irish immigrants, the German immigrants all came to this country, worked their tails off. They were discriminated against. Ethnic groups have lived through this before, and I guess I don't get Scott. Anyway, so that's my quick Scott Harrington.
That's your 2 cents.
Diatribe. Good morning, there, partner.
That was your Scott Harrington.
We haven't forgotten.
It was weak. I know. I don't hold a candle to the maestro. How are we doing?
Listen, you can't. If you could see my face while I was listening to you two talk about defunding the police,
right?
Reimagining law enforcement,
right?
Please, I would like my own task force. I would like to reimagine crime. Why don't we have a reimagining crime task force?
Yeah.
And then we can reimagine law enforcement. But if crime is the same, we still need the police.
Yep.
This is astounding to me.
Yeah.
And I just first would like to say good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's okay. We miss you, man.
Al, so proud of you.
Thank you.
I watch, I read on Facebook. As you know, I comment occasionally. I did recently have to put my 2 cents in.
Yep. No, I appreciate because you were in that. He was in that meeting.
Was it 2 cents or like a quarter?
I mean, I read the response from City Hall to Val, and I was appalled,
astounded.
Astounded. It was to put it bluntly, it wasn't correct. It wasn't true.
Right.
We went in there with an attitude of, I don't mean to rehash old stuff, but we went in there to try to come up with a solution. We were treated poorly. We were disregarded, and the City Hall's approach to fixing the problem is, it's not my fault. There's nothing I can do, and I've done the best I can. And you're kind of bothering me now. I need to go make a bike trail. Okay, great. And just what the PBA predicted, just what Concerns Kingston predicted would happen, is exactly what happened. So we told you so. What are you going to... Okay, wipe it clean. Got it. I've been wrong many times. I've said I was wrong. I was wrong about the rail trail. So please, Kingston leadership, you were wrong. Step forward and correct it.
Yeah, I'm not sure they know how to at this point, but I guess,
Well,
groups
people
like...
that do.
Well,
All the people that do.
thank God groups like Val's are holding people's feet to the fire and being accountable and saying, you know what, you just can't go off and la-di-da this thing. It's
Right.
it's important, and it's important to the people. Go ahead, Val.
Scott, I wanted to ask you, and you read the response, the statistics, and I want your input. There's a saying as an accountant that the numbers don't lie, but I think the numbers might be lying. What's your response? What would your response be to that?
So in my 25 years of law enforcement experience, I'm familiar with the Uniform Crime Report, and that was what was being quoted. Statistics. The numbers might not lie, but statistics can be made to say whatever you want.
Right.
If you are robbed, if somebody breaks into your home, that would be a burglary. If you're at home, it's a robbery. If you're not at home, it's a burglary. So if somebody kicks in your door, goes in your house, you're not home, steals your stuff, and runs back out the door, that's a burglary. But, that looks bad, doesn't it? A burglary, or a lot of burglaries, looks bad in the community. So I'm not throwing anybody under the bus or saying when these things occurred, but I am privy to the fact that when filling out uniform crime reports, one might be encouraged to say, well, rather than a burglary, which is bad, let's call it a trespass and a larceny. So the person trespassed on property they weren't welcome in, and then they stole something, which is a larceny. Those two things go in the uniform crime report differently than a burglary, and make it look like crime is going down. Human error, human judgment is involved. How that report is filed, how these statistics are manipulated. And again, I am not saying someone's doing this. I'm saying that it would be a pattern across all government accountability personnel who want to make themselves appear as though things are going better. They're not going better. Ride down Kingston streets. Ride through Midtown. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Common sense. I haven't been there in several months now, Tony. Am I wrong? Or is it
No,
you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
No, you're on the money.
And I think what's the most concerning and is that the morning that DJ Mason was murdered, and it's a crazy thought, but I woke up that morning. It was snowing. You were in Florida, I think, at the time. It was snowing. It was a cold day, and I remember waking up thinking, I think we're gonna see a little bit of relief, because usually this kind of activity doesn't happen during the cold months.
Right.
And so, hopefully we can use this as an opportunity as a community to regroup, come up with a game plan, and when the warm weather strikes and the crime soars, we'll be ready for it. The community will be ready for it. We'll have a game plan. Well, I thought we would have taken this time to do that. And then bam, that night my phone starts blowing up so it was really kind of crazy how that happened. And then again, just last week, there was another shooting. And that to me, it's like when the springtime comes, we're going to be completely asleep at the wheel. If something
and overwhelmed.
I have to tell you, my and you know him, Scott, Ken Cooper. He was a security guy over at Bard. He's a great guy. Used to be a restaurant owner, but Ken is, let's say, a conservative, and a law and order guy, basically. And so he went up to Albany with a buddy of his to a gun shop, and he said, no shotguns to be found.
Yep.
I mean, just people are buying, other than $3,000 shotguns, no home defense shotguns. So people are buying ammunition and they're buying guns.
It's so.
I mean, that's scary.
It is scary.
Freaking scary.
Terrifying.
By the way, I bought one.
Guess what? When the police are not allowed to protect you, who is going to protect you? You're going to have to protect yourself. And the police have been stopped by our government from protecting our tax-paying, law-abiding citizens. I never in my life thought I would see my country occupied by the Army at our capital.
Yeah.
Journalists jailed for disagreeing with the power brokers.
Yeah.
We are a third world country now, on the cusp, and it's terrifying to me.
Yeah, of a civil war.
Yeah, it's really getting bad. I don't know what's going to...
Thomas Jefferson was right. Read Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Our founding fathers were brilliant. They were people ahead of their time. Their ideas were guerrilla fighters.
Yeah.
The guerrilla fighters of their day. And they were right when they formed this great nation.
And they knew what it was.
The Constitution, and we have lost our way, and it's scary. It's scary to watch from afar.
Scott, it's interesting. They knew what it was like to live under tyranny, because they lived under the British rule, and so they wrote into the Constitution specific aspects to, let's say, prevent that from happening again. It looks like we're creeping back towards government just in our lives, telling us what to do, where to go, and then now there's such a huge divide in this country, and I don't want to say it's even haves and have-nots. It's I'm not sure exactly what the divide is. People forgot that we're all in this together. We're all in this together. I mean, are there some idiots out there? Absolutely. There's major idiots all over the place. By the way, who we need to be protected against sometimes, right? But we have more in common than we have separate us if we could get to the table and have, peaceful, reasonable conversations.
I agree.
Right?
And I think that's one of the most things that's concerning in this is that the conversations don't want to be had by our leader. And, rather just say, here's the statistics, crime will always happen. It's not an answer. It's not an answer.
It's nothing we can do. Doing our best. You're bothering me. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
Walking out on 1,100 petitions that we took great pains. Val to be credited with this. This is her program. Took great pains to accurately and appropriately present information, ask people's opinions. No pressure. No, here, you got to sign this. Here's why we're here. This is what we think. If you agree, would you sign this for our mayor and our common council?
Yeah.
And people came. I was amazed at how many people came out.
I was
Walked
too.
Away.
I think
Walked away and left them on the table.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, and you think that the amount of time people, this wasn't some online petition or sit at home and hit the send button on your email. People came down to Deet Stadium, came to Midtown, came to downtown, took time out of their day. That's how important this is to the community. And for him to completely dismiss it.
Just disregard.
And it's like, who are you working for? We're your constituents.
Yeah.
And Scott, I have to say, and I really value your input on this because of your background with law enforcement is, when I look at this issue and you see violence and you see guns and, my thought immediately goes to drugs and gangs. Mm-hmm. And, where's the message? Where are, people, what do you expect me to do? Listen, this is what I would expect you to do. I would expect you, as the mayor of this city, to have a very public press conference where you say that this is not welcome in our town, and I am instructing the chief and KPD that, if drugs is your business, surrender now and ask for help. If not, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many people that have said there are open drug deals going on every day at this location. Here's the address. I call KPD. They're like, We know. I mean, what this is like? It's like
Not funny.
The leadership is absolutely
Absent.
mind-boggling to me. And we have people dying, and my brother will be on at 8:30 to speak about his story of drug addiction and recovery. But we've got people all the time in this city. It's not really, you're not really seeing it in the paper, but there are overdoses. We are losing people. People are dying. And the mayor also spoke about in his response about, mental health and all that. And I agree with you. And listen, if somebody has mental health issues, having them live in a community where the crime is through the roof and there's bullets flying, that's not good for somebody who has mental health issues. So if you're really concerned with mental health, that plays a part.
I wonder if the COVID is providing cover for a lot of this. Yeah, exactly.
It's an excuse.
You know what I mean? It's we can't do this, we can't do that. COVID pandemic, blah blah blah. The overdoses not being reported, mental health issues, not being addressed. And I get it. It's an overwhelming time for leaders. I get that, but not the time to cower, not the time to retreat. Time to get people involved, time to say, hey, here's our agenda, like you're saying, and get it out there and get people on board with you. Mm-hmm. That's what a leader does.
Yeah, and
ask for... move forward to a positive, to try to turn the conversation to what can we do.
Right, right.
And because I follow Concerned Kingston on Facebook, somebody, I don't remember the name, came up with a very, very good idea yesterday or the day before, whenever it was. We need a platform. They suggested 7 points. Let's come up with 7 points that need to be addressed. And what we need is a group of Kingston residents, because you have to be a resident of Kingston to serve as a politician there, that need to step forward. And I'm sorry that I'm not one of those people. As I wrote in my own comments, that's just not my path in life at the moment. But I wish, in many ways, I wish that the timing had been different. I would have gladly served again in whatever capacity necessary, but someone younger than me, someone that doesn't look like me, needs to step forward and say, we're not going to tolerate this. And they need to run for office, not as a Democrat, not as a Republican, not as a liberal, not as a conservative, but as a citizen.
Exactly.
As a citizen serving their community.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is the gift that Concerned Kingston can give to the community, is to use this amazing movement to identify and put forward the candidates for office that can turn the ship around.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is whether those people are out there and willing to step forward. I mean, that's everyone's got.
Hard to do.
Yeah, exactly. So it's we keep hopeful that people will step up that get it, that have had some experience in leading people, and
they don't even have to have experience, Tony. They just have to be reasonable, decent people.
Mm-hmm.
I would be a lightning rod. I'm ruined. My time in the public spotlight has created an image of me that would not work in that scenario. So,
right.
And Val's going to hate me for this. She could do it. And I know she doesn't. I know that she has a family and a really good business to run.
Right.
But you are the power. You could be the power behind the power, because you're leading without an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You're not arrogant. You're not self-serving. You're just a good.
Let me tell you.
An agenda.
Let me tell you. I was going to say I do have an agenda.
Yeah, I do
have an agenda, and my agenda is this. The generation before me left an amazing city to be able to raise a family, and I don't want.
Your father.
And
your father did that.
I don't want in 15 years my kids to look back and say, and look at my husband and I and say, what did you leave us?
Yeah.
And that's my agenda.
Yeah, there's an obligation there.
But
Scott,
your agenda is not self-serving. The agendas of those in power appear to be self-serving. We all want, the members of Concerned Kingston and the decent folks that live in our city, want what you said, Val. They want their children to have a place to come back to, a job to take, and a community to live in. And those folks have to take this opportunity. And again, forgive me, I'm lecturing and not doing what I'm saying, but I'm not there anymore. But step forward. I hope one of the attorneys that's involved will take the advice of some of our members, step forward, help the group perhaps file some complaints with our state government about the conduct of City Hall, about what's going on there. If the current leadership needs to be removed, remove them. If they are willing to help and change, please do so. You have 1,100 people, and probably now more like 5,000 people that will come behind you and help you.
I want to get back to what you were saying about people stepping up and running for office that are common sense approached. As someone who's stood in front of cameras and in front of 500, 1,000 people, I can tell you it takes the right kind of person to be able to do that. If you have common sense, that's great. If you have a good, maybe a financial background, that's great. Dealing with people, supervising people. I guess what I'm saying is the job is complicated. I'm talking about the mayor job right now, or any, it could be a Pat Ryan job, or any kind of job that's almost like a CEO of a company, right?
It is. That's what it is.
It's a CEO of the city.
Yeah.
It's a CEO of the county. It takes someone with a skill set that, can deflect certain things, that can absorb certain things, that can go on the offensive. No, but then can go on the offensive as well, but also takes into consideration people's thoughts and ideas and, bringing people into you. But so what I'm saying is not everyone can do that. I mean, even if you're a good-hearted, kind person and you think you know what's right for this community, you may not have the leadership skills to step up and make a difference. We've had enough, people in leadership positions, elected officials, that don't know, they can't manage their way out of a paper bag. So we don't need that. What we need is people that have a skill set and willing to step up and maybe put their personal lives on hold for a little bit. It's a sacrifice, right? I mean, it is an absolute sacrifice to do this. If you have a family and you're always in the spotlight, right? You can't. You're under a microscope.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
So that's why people.
It's gotten nasty. Politics has
gotten nasty.
nasty.
But why people don't run is because they don't want their personal life opened up, right? So if you have a skeleton or two in your closet, you're going to say, "Yeah, I don't think so."
Maybe we're going to leave it there.
Right. Let's try to approach it from a different angle.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, partner, but I think, many are called, but few are chosen. Let me just leave it at that.
You're 100% right, and if you are worthy, you don't have a skeleton in your closet. You got a graveyard in your closet.
Right.
That's what I got. That's what taught me the lesson, right?
Yeah.
I got a graveyard in my closet. You want to know about my dirty laundry? Go for it.
Yeah.
It's what created who we are as we move forward.
No, I get you.
And
I get you.
I want to give an example, perhaps, of what this is going to create within my own circle. I won't tell you who the person is, but suffice to say that there's someone who I love and who are related to me, who got some toll booth tickets down in because the tolls were closed. Right, you go through the tolls, you get to pay the fine by mail, notice, so on and so forth. And they said, "I'm not paying that." I said, "Well, of course you're going to pay that." "No, I'm not. No one has to pay it."
Oh, Lord.
They can't do anything to you. They passed a law in New York that says they can't suspend your license anymore for not paying. So nobody else pays. Why should I? And that's what we're creating.
Yeah.
There's no punishment for a crime. How are we teaching our children? We're all parents. How are we teaching our children that there are things that you can do the right thing or the wrong thing? And if you do the wrong thing, there's consequences. If there are no consequences, it's much easier to do the wrong thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And And that's what's going to happen if we don't correct this locally, within our own families, which I'm doing, locally, regionally, and nationally. If we don't correct this, we will become Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm.
The People's Republic of New York.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of upheaval and tension, and I mean it's palpable in my mind. I mean, and I think I don't know. We talked about it on the air before. The only era that this kind of reminds me of is, and Val, I don't think was even close to around.
Are you going to say the 1930s, Tony?
No, I was going to say the 60s, brother. I was going to say the 60s. A lot of civil unrest, a lot of racial issues, right, with Martin Luther King in the beginning, early 60s, yep. And then the Vietnam War, and all kinds of craziness
and
going on.
Government.
Right.
Corrupt government.
Yeah, correct. And that was those 10 years. Were a mess in this country. I mean, it was a mess. I mean, there was a lot of new things that happened, but, Kennedy shot, Johnson, I mean, a lot of national upheaval going on and, social unrest. I mean, people that didn't like the Vietnam War, protesting. And, I watched Martin Luther King with Leanne the other night. We watched like 2-3 hours of that stuff as it unfolded at the time. You talk about those riots and police involved, and it was a horrible time in our country, horrible. And it's a long time ago. We forget that. Mm-hmm. But what's going on today is knocking on the door of this. It's knocking on the door of what happened in the 60s, and that was a tough decade for this country.
Mm-hmm.
When you disregard the history, you're doomed to repeat it.
I was just going to say that.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. But you could see it creeping up.
The far liberal left is rewriting history the way they would like it rewritten.
Right.
We have an ugly past.
Right.
Just like I do.
Like your skeletons graveyard.
Right?
Although, partner, you look
have that.
You look pretty.
Did you learn from it? Did you learn from it and grow?
Right.
That's all you can do.
Over and over and over again.
By the way, you look pretty happy holding that red snapper on the boat.
Yes, you did.
Oh, dude.
But
very happy. And did you see my picture of my 89-year-old Korean War combat veteran, best buddy, Billy Rickson, holding his gigantic red snapper?
Yeah.
Dude went out 25 miles in our boat with us.
How old is he?
89. I love that guy.
How old is he?
He's 89.
I would not believe that. I thought that guy was like maybe around my age, maybe in his mid-60s. He did not look anywhere near 89.
He's not going to hate me for giving out his age. He's proud of it.
Well, he should be, man. He looked amazing.
From Port Ewan. Everybody knows the Rickson family. And Billy is retired down here as well and is my constant fishing partner. 89, bringing in that big fish.
That's good amazing, man. That's I aspire to that, man. How's Bad Andy doing?
Who's Bad Andy?
Bad Andy is my new radio co-host. Although he's fallen behind on the project. Bad Andy and the Captain is a podcast that's going to be launched. We hope within the next 30 days.
Nice.
It's going to be a live radio show like you're on.
Good. Great.
And also a podcast.
Great.
We are. It's going to be a show for dads. That's our theme. There are lots of shows that talk about lots of different topics. There are very few where dads get together and talk about the challenges of being a dad.
Right. Like putting a grill together. That's something like that.
Yeah. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to steer away from politics as much as possible, but you know me.
Oh, Jesus, come on. That's just...
Bad Andy and the Captain. He went away with his beautiful wife, Caroline, for a few days. Came home to a couple challenges, I'm told, and he has not returned yesterday's phone call yet. But I bet I'll hear from him
Well,
today.
tell him I said hi if you talk to him. I started the Black Hand, but I just haven't... I've been so freaking busy, and I just haven't had time. Here's my big desire. Here's my resolution for 2021. Read more.
Yes.
Read more.
I love it.
I mean,
Yeah,
I just,
learn more.
learn more, read more. And I just, I have to, it's like going to the gym. You got to just force yourself.
To do it.
You got to force yourself. I mean, that's,
It's funny because that was one of my resolutions too. I read my first book and then I went to download my second book, and my Kindle, the screen isn't working. So it's like I keep trying.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Yeah. So, and the rest of this,
Kingston's canned beer, the Kindle.
The rest of the,
That's how I read. And download the Black Hand, Andrew Stack, author Andrew Stack, the Black Hand at authorandrewstack.com, and read this wonderful, historic, and appropriate book.
it's a fictional book based on kind of real people.
Based on true events.
Right, yeah, real events, which are kind of cool. Those are cool movies when they do something like that. So the book, it's interesting. I don't know. I get my life is complicated right now, so with a lot of stuff. So, and what about the rest of the St. Augustine cartel? How are they?
The St. Augustine cartel is doing well. Let me say that the dichotomy between New York and Florida is stunning. Florida's open, right? Florida's open. People are cool. You can go into a restaurant. You can eat inside. You can eat outside. You can go in and shop. You can go to the grocery store. There isn't anywhere you can't go, right? There's anywhere you can't go. People are pretty cool. Most people wear their masks. Some places require it. Some places encourage it. I've been in places where no one had on a mask except me, and I've been in places where everyone had on a mask. And guess what? Our infection rate here is lower than New York's, and business is booming.
Are the kids in school full time down there, Scott?
What?
Are the kids in school full time down there?
The kids are in school here, to the best of my knowledge, because I don't have kids, but school is regular here. I see the buses out every day. Everyone is going to school in school.
Yeah.
Scott Lawrence just came back from
teachers, Chicago. The teachers union, Chicago. They're going to work and earning their pay. Not that they don't earn their pay at home when they were forced to stay at home, but when you have the opportunity to go back to school, go back to school. That's a really must-do. And by the way, the vaccinations here are going well. They do run out of vaccinations, but my neighbors who are over 65 have been able to go and get their first shots. St. Johns County is managing it. Somebody had a great suggestion, and I heard it for the first time on national radio yesterday. You want to manage the vaccinations correctly? Turn it over to Chick-fil-A.
Oh my gosh, that's actually a really good idea.
I don't get it.
If you've ever been to Chick-fil-A down south, they had to rebuild most of them to put 2 lanes of pickup traffic in there. They have facilitators outside helping people get through the lines. They block traffic most of the time, and Chick-fil-A does it every day. You want vaccines given out correctly? Turn it over to Chick-fil-A.
Scott, I love it. I love it.
Oh, that's
Have you
hilarious.
never been to a Chick-fil-A?
I think I was once in Texas.
Oh.
2 minutes, Scotty. We're going to stop at 7:55 because we didn't take the 7:30 break.
Thank you for
in deference to you.
I love both of you, Valerie. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, Scott. I miss you.
You are a wonderful, wonderful person, and the Hudson Valley is lucky to have you and your family there. Tony, you know what? Is that a Robert Graham shirt you're wearing? That thing's beautiful, man.
I love you, brother. I love you.
Rich, handsome, and hair like a...
Oh, yeah. And 2 out of 3 is not bad. Oh, man. All right, listen, be well, be safe, and keep catching those fish and keep getting that vitamin D. I have to take vitamin D supplements. You get it just walking outside all the time.
I'm tanning in my thong and tube top.
Oh, man, that's a bad sign.
Dude, do you really have to leave us with that?
No,
it's gross.
And I expect no tan lines from you, brother.
I love you guys.
We love and miss you, Scott.
Opportunity to speak.
Yep, be well. Take care, man.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Lawrence, go to break.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
100 years ago, there were 100,000 tigers in the wild. Today, there are as few as 3,200. The Earth's wild animals can't speak up when they need help, but we can. Be the voice for those who have no voice. Visit worldwildlife.org.
We are lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. You can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Ruth Quick from Town of Ulster. I support Kingston Community Radio, and you should too.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
All right, we're back. This is Thunder Thursday. And
Ba-ba-ba-boom!
Flash. That was cool because that's an homage to Scott Harrington. Brandon's saying, oh, man, this is weird.
Yeah, what did I get myself into?
Right. No, this is cool. So, Lawrence, do we have Tim? Let's see, we have birthdays. I don't think we have any birthdays. Folks, you got to...
No, there's no birthdays. We've been low on birthdays. So
right, we got to send some birthdays in.
Paula Strang dropped off some yesterday.
All right, hopefully Tim Wiedemann is going to call in. He should be calling in any minute. But so until that time, we're going to welcome Brandon. Why don't we do that?
Yeah, sure.
And then when Tim comes on, we'll get to Tim, and then we'll get to Brandon in the next half hour. So welcome, Brandon. How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. You want to interview your brother? No.
That's up to you.
Well, no. So I know you're part of Harold Construction, right?
Yes.
And you're a local raised kind of a guy, yes. as are you, Valerie. And so and I know both your parents for quite some time, and so it's kind of interesting. What I love to see, and you alluded to it earlier, is generational involvement. And so we're going to talk about your story in a second, Brandon. But I think we talked about the Jordans. There's many Kingston families whose offspring are now starting to get involved and in the community, and I think that has to be. I mean, folks in our 60s. We've been doing this for a while. It's a little bit time to start handing off the baton and getting another generation involved in this community. I think that's healthy. I think it's appropriate because you all see things a little differently than us, and we have to be. I'm big in the tolerance world now. That's my deal. So we're going to get to your story, but I think Tim Wiedemann is on the phone, so don't go far. Okay. Tim Wiedemann, welcome to KCR.
Good to be here and be with you guys this morning.
Yeah, it's great. Do you know Valerie Dwyer?
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Hey, Valerie. It's good to hear from you.
You too.
Tim, can you give folks a little bit of your background, your personal background, sure. So folks, because we can say, hey, you're the director of economic development and da-da-da-da-da-da, but I think it's important, for people in our community to get to know people that are in positions of authority and can make decisions, who you are, what background you came from, and, anything else you want to share about who you are.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I think maybe if I drone on, just stop me. Because, I've got a history here that I'm happy to walk through. But
go ahead.
It starts with moving to the area to go to college at SUNY New Paltz way too long ago at this point. But,
right.
I came my last 2 years of high school. Went to high school in the Newburgh area, and then decided that I really liked the Hudson Valley and found this great college called SUNY New Paltz where there was rock climbing and good music and all that kind of stuff. So spent 4 years at New Paltz. I was a philosophy and religious studies major. So
okay.
In some ways it actually prepared me really well for the work that I do now. I really feel like the quality of the education that I got at SUNY New Paltz was absolutely stunning. I really feel grateful to this day for that.
By the way, you could either been what you are or a bartender too, because philosophy and religion it works well in a bar as well.
It does, exactly. Well, I took it, and when I was a student there, I had the opportunity to do some part-time work with a local consultant in the New Paltz area who did work with towns and villages and cities and counties. And I just found that interesting and exciting, and kind of a lot of a steep learning curve as a college student, new to the area, but starting to understand what is a town and what is a village, and like all these kind of, they sound a little boring, but I found them really interesting. And so after a couple years of doing that kind of work, I went back to graduate school down in Pittsburgh and spent a couple years there and learned a lot about how economies work as I was in Pittsburgh towards the tail end of their recovery from the collapse of the steel industry. So as folks may know, the steel industry was kind of the engine for the economy in the Pittsburgh area. And in the early 90s, after a couple of declines in the 70s and 80s, but in the early 90s, really the industry all left the area there. And so studying economic development there at the time was kind of a study in how regions recover from the loss of a major industry or major employer. And so came back here after that because we have family here, my wife and I, and really just, I think there's something about the Hudson Valley that once you've been here, it's hard to leave for good. Mm-hmm. And so we came back and settled in the Kingston area and have been here ever since, so about 20 years.
So you grew up in Newburgh, or you grew up somewhere other than Newburgh?
No, I grew up in western New York, Elmira, New York.
Oh, Elmira, okay. Right.
Which is another kind of formative thing for me as I think about the work that I do now, that, I grew up in a small city. Elmira is about the same population as Kingston, maybe actually a little bit bigger. But it's a community that struggles because it doesn't have the proximity to New York City, which fuels so much of what happens here throughout the Hudson Valley.
What's the industry in Elmira? Just curious.
There isn't much left.
There's
Kennedy Valve is a big one. They manufacture fire hydrants and other water, kind of municipal water system products. So if you look around at some of the fire hydrants, even around here, you'll see Kennedy Valve and that.
Oh, no kidding. Well, they're closer to, Pennsylvania. They should be part of Pennsylvania, right?
It's almost that way, yeah. In fact, one of the big booms there in the last 15 years was when fracking was all the rage in Pennsylvania, and all of the hotels were booked up for years because of all the staff that were required for the gas fracking work that was happening in northern Pennsylvania, but not enough hotels down there. So, it's interesting being right on the border of the two states.
Were you involved in the Williams Lake project? I seem to remember you coming on KCR a long time ago in our old studios when you were a consultant for them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I wasn't really involved in the Williams Lake project itself, but I was involved for a while when I was still doing my own consulting work and traveling a lot for work. I got fascinated with the rail trail system that was getting built around here. And so in the time frame where Williams Lake was kind of finalizing their plans, and at the same time the northern section of the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail was kind of finally coming to fruition as the trestle in Rosendale was getting completed and the trail was extending north to Kingston. And so I think I was on talking about some of that stuff that was, a real priority for me at the time was, helping to think about how could we, especially make Kingston, which was historically kind of where all the railroads converged, as most of those were abandoned and underused, how could we turn them into a network of trails that converged into Kingston?
So Tim, first of all, congratulations. I see that your position with the county was newly appointed. So congratulations.
Thanks, Val.
I was just wondering, just wanted to ask. So I see in the county budget, I think it was like $53 million was allocated towards economic development. And I was talking with Tony before the show. It's kind of this weird time because, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but at the same time, we do have kind of this influx. We're kind of in this unusual area in that we have this influx of people, from Manhattan. So I was just interested, just wanted to speak a little bit, that money and that budget, what does that look like and what type of projects are you working on? And, just speak also a little bit to the pandemic and how that plays into.
Yeah, of course. So, just to clarify, the county does its budgeting in kind of two different budgets. One is our operating budget, which pays the day-to-day bills, people's salaries, the lights, all that kind of stuff. And then we have a thing called the capital budget, which is looking at, buildings and equipment and stuff that's long-lived that the county needs to invest in. And so, I'll break the economic development funding into those two categories. Our operating budget includes salaries for our team of 4 people in the Office of Economic Development. So that's me. I have a deputy director, Kate Heidecker. We have a business services associate, Barb Lauren, and then a secretary, Natalie Michael. And so our salaries are in that operating budget. And in addition to our salaries, there's about $350,000 that we have for various contracts and services that we hire local folks to do on behalf of the department. So that's everything from advertising and marketing, it's doing plans and studies, it's administering some of our programs like our revolving loan fund, that kind of thing. And then in this year's budget, we included a large pool of funds, at least dedicated it in theory. There aren't dollars behind this, but the capital budget works a little strange. It just kind of says, here's things that we think over the next few years we're going to have to invest in buildings or equipment or longer-lived things. And we set aside $3 million in that budget to invest over time in the former Tech City properties that the county now owns. And so I'd be happy to go into some detail on that because that's really one of our number one priorities.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, absolutely.
Let me quickly, before I do, just kind of say that the pandemic obviously is still raging, and there's still so much work that we're doing to try to help support businesses as they struggle through this kind of hopefully last couple months of really tough slog to get through the pandemic. And so that's really on the day-to-day basis. We spend most of our time answering calls from businesses that are struggling with figuring out how to adhere to state guidelines or local guidelines on the pandemic, or that have found that they just can't make ends meet now, and they're trying to figure out if there's some resources to help them make it through the next couple months. And so our most of our time is spent on that. But at the same time, we know that this pandemic will end, and so we have to be thinking about what we're going to do to kind of make sure we recover and come back to our full strength as a community and an economy once we're through this.
Are you getting paycheck protection?
So that's the to that end, I would point to the opportunity that we have that I think all of us can agree has been long in coming to rethink the former IBM campus in the town of Ulster.
I just want to say one thing. I think it's very ironic because when you were speaking about being in Pittsburgh and, kind of recovering from losing the steel industry, my very first thought was, wow, we could have used that, when we lost the IBM industry. So it's kind of interesting that you're circling back to Tech City. So
and I just want to give one because I'm old as dirt, so I remember a few things in Kingston, and I do remember sitting at Wiltwyck when Allen Ginsberg, and it was probably 1998, 1999, room full of people, the Chamber of Commerce put this event on. Len Kane was running the chamber back then. And Allen Ginsberg stood up and basically said, I'm going to solve your problems with the former IBM building, and here's the plan, here's the vision, here's what's going to happen. And then here we are,
many years
22 years later,
Yeah.
and we are a little bit further along the path.
Yeah.
But so I think everyone, it's almost a little bit like the Kingstonian. It's like, okay, this is a significant project for this community. Tech City is like the 900-pound gorilla for this community.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's a huge piece
asset.
of yeah, it's a huge piece of property.
So Tim, tell us.
No, I agree with everything you're saying, and I brought up the Pittsburgh reference because I think it's really relevant here. My experience, learning from folks who had struggled through the collapse of not just a single employer but an entire industry in the Pittsburgh region. This sounds a little cheesy, but it causes some sort of emotional damage to a community to go through that loss, and it takes a while. There's no way to rush to how you move from being traumatized from that loss to learning a lesson from that loss, and then kind of recapturing your mojo and getting back on your game. And I think we're there. I think that and I don't know Alan. I have no personal reference to make about Alan, but I can just say that the situation of 20 to 25 years of a site that should be considered one of the best premier assets, economic development assets in the entire region, not just the county, sitting there dormant and underutilized, it's tragic, and we just can't let that continue to happen. And I think it's taken some time, hopefully, for people to get to the place where they all agree on at least one thing, which is we can no longer afford to have this asset underperforming. And so now that sets the stage for a complicated process to figure out what to do with it. And my belief, and I think this is one that made me excited to take this role of economic development on, even during a time where sometimes it feels like it's an impossible task. But this is an opportunity that I think we have, and that I'm excited to work with a county executive and Pat Ryan, who I think has a lot of trust in me to do this work, but also I think has the right vision for how we, not necessarily what we accomplish there, but how we accomplish it, which is to take smaller steps and to engage as many people as possible in deciding what those steps should be. Instead of trying to take the whole site and saying, here's what we're going to do, and then trying to raise tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to do it, I think there's opportunities here for us to take small pieces of it and think and engage, local businesses and real estate developers and real estate brokers and community members, and start with a piece of it, and then when we have success there, transition that success into momentum for other portions of the site. And so that's really, I think, what we're doing. And the capital program that you referenced, Val, has $3 million in it. That again, I would just say that that's not real dollars because we don't have those set aside, but it's really just pointing the direction that says we need some modest investment in the properties that the county now owns, which for those that are kind of vaguely familiar with the whole IBM campus, it's almost 300 acres total, but the county, through foreclosure due to unpaid taxes, was able to claim 2 parcels that are on the kind of southwest side of the campus, near the United Healthcare building. They include the buildings that Bank of America was in for a few years when they were doing their tax process.
Right.
And so we have that to start working with and to really start showing what's possible, and then to use that progress and that success to build momentum for the rest of the site.
What needs to be done? I know obviously contamination was an issue there. What needs to happen in order to make them shovel ready? And also, do you foresee the structures that are there? Do you see that they will remain there, or do you think they'll be demolished and there will be new, or what do you envision, or you don't know? It's too early to tell.
Well, yeah, some of that stuff I think we know pretty well. There's been obviously over the course of the 25 years that not much dramatic progress has been made at redeveloping the site. There's certainly been lots of studies and plans, and so the environmental issues are pretty well documented at this point, and for the most part, they're kind of 2 categories. One is of old industrial solvents and chemicals that are in the ground and in the groundwater on the site. Mm-hmm. And so that's a challenge, but it's a challenge that's not insurmountable. For the most part, the site is serviced by municipal water, so we don't need to drink the water that's on the site. And if you're doing development in sensitive ways, you can avoid disturbing the soils, which prevents an issue with that pollution. There's also issues with buildings that were demolished and rubble piles that are there that are continue to be on properties that the county doesn't own and will need to be resolved before those sites can be redeveloped. But for the moment, I would say overall, the site is large, and there are portions of the site, including the part that the county owns, where contamination is not a real deterrent for redevelopment.
Okay.
And then also the buildings, I kind of had this, before I started to get really deeply involved in this, I had this general perception that the whole site was buildings that were about to fall down or needed to be torn down. And in fact, obviously, it seems logical. It seems almost obvious now that that was probably wrong. You can't paint a site that big with a single brush. And so the buildings that the county now owns, which are the former Bank of America buildings, are in really good shape. I think we were surprised as our Department of Public Works got in there once the county took possession of the buildings and started to evaluate everything from the structure itself to the building heating and cooling systems and all that stuff, to find that because Bank of America had made some significant investments when they started using the space and maintained it very well during the duration of their use, that building is in great shape. It's 400,000 square feet of mainly office space that was well maintained and that we think is reusable in a lot of interesting ways.
One of the things that I know is kind of one of the buzzwords is housing. And really housing when I speak about housing, I speak about housing for people that are looking to downsize.
Yeah.
I think, I'm sure obviously you heard that the pilot was approved. And I think, for someone like that, I've got kids who are, going to be going to college in the next 10 years, and my husband and I will be looking to downsize at some point. So has there been any talk about housing, private developers?
Yeah, I think, obviously housing represents a new kind of use on the site. It hasn't been present there before, and there are constraints about where it could be, and in particular, got to be sensitive to those contamination issues that, although they don't necessarily present a complete obstacle, there are challenges there that would need to be figured out in order to build housing on the site and do it safely.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of the considerations. I think in some of the past planning, that's been identified as a potential use, and we just released. Man, it stinks that sometimes these things get so technical, but we released a document called a Request for Expressions of Interest last week, and so this is available on our county economic development page, which is ulstercounty.ny.gov/economic development, and up there's a link to this Request for Expressions of Interest, and really that's a call to anyone, any business, any real estate developer or professional, to put forward ideas about what they'd like to see the county properties used for, and we include in that an encouragement for folks that think that there's an opportunity for housing development on the site to put forward that proposal, and so we're eagerly awaiting those proposals and suggestions and ideas are due February 26th, and so as those come in, I think that'll give us a better picture of the kinds of things that there's interest in doing, and then some potential partners that the county can work with in order to redevelop those sites that we now own, and to think about a mix of things like manufacturing, housing, maybe other commercial distribution, or we've had some interest from food producers in the region, and so I think we're anticipating that there'll be a kind of range of interest expressed, which both will help us to think about what to do in the short term on the parcels the county now owns, and also help us reassess what might be the right plan going forward for the rest of the campus as it becomes available to redevelop.
I know one of the things personally I would like to see is just some jobs for, not everybody can go to college and have a 4-year degree.
Right. Tradespeople.
Tradespeople, some middle class. We used to have manufacturing. We speak about Elmira, right? I mean, you drive west out New York, and those always used to be manufacturing jobs, and that's all gone. And so you have this whole class of people that don't have any opportunities.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's something that we can be able to get out of that space.
Tim and I, I'm in the employment world, and I guess the issue in my mind is, available workforce, regardless of, what business comes in there. And the pandemic has made it exponentially more difficult to find people, folks just on the sidelines. And certainly the pandemic is going to stop.
Do you think so? But let me ask you a question on that, and because we talked about this before off the air. I know there are employers that are having a hard time getting their employees to come back to work because
Yeah.
of that unemployment check. Do you think that that plays into the workforce at all? And when some of those incentives go, I don't want to say incentives, that might be a wrong
we
word,
definitely
but
saw the first, as soon as the $600 federal unemployment subsidy stopped, people came back to the workforce
Right.
in droves. This was back in July, and our business took off again, the temp world and temp to perm world. But I think it's 300 now, and I think people are intentionally out of the unemployment market. So there's those that are not collecting unemployment, another number, and those in the unemployment. Our Ulster County unemployment right now is 5%. Tim, correct? In that neck of the woods?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not, and pre-pandemic it was 3.5, 3.2, which was historic lows.
Right.
But I guess what I'm saying is we'd have to attract people into our market to work, and I think Ulster County is well poised to do that because of a lot of the factors that we've spoken about previously. The whole quality of life up here, and there's so many good reasons, but the companies have to pay a living wage as well.
This is, I think, the crux of what our challenge is going to be after we get through the pandemic. My sense is that we go back to the challenge that existed before the pandemic, which is that we have an awesome quality of life that I think we all agree we want to try to preserve, and the question is, how do we do that? And there's a difficult balancing act in there there's lots of ways to look at it. Sometimes it's a balancing act between how do we attract the workforce that we need for our employers to be successful, but then also how do we support the folks who are here that are, we're all probably used to now that there is no single career that people have for 40 years anymore. They've got to be able to move between careers because our economy changes so quickly that any one industry is unlikely to thrive for the duration of a person's career, and so they're going to have to be forced to make those transitions that are so difficult. And how do we support our existing workforce to be retooled and retrained for the kinds of jobs that are promising for them in the future? Those are two things that I think we struggled with before the pandemic and will continue to struggle with, and they relate to housing and other kind of cost of life factors. So, as we see increasing demand and we see people moving up from New York City as a result of the pandemic. We know that pattern. We've seen it, in the Hudson Valley after 9/11. We saw it, and whenever there's kind of a reason for folks to rethink their choice of living in a major metropolitan area, we see a bubble of kind of out-migration, and that's both good. I mentioned that as what distinguishes a place like Kingston from a place like Elmira, and I think there's a lot of positive there, but it also creates challenges, and one of them is that we only have we don't build a lot of new housing around here, and the Kingstonian is an example of building some new housing, and folks may criticize it for being higher prices than maybe the average person can afford, but ultimately we just need a lot of
more
additional housing at lots of price points because people want to be here, and we want to be able to absorb that population as part of the solution to getting our workforce to the scale and with the skills that our employers require.
And I think also because and one of the benefits of housing versus the office. I mean, you look at the Hudson Valley Mall; it's empty, and not that really says much, but
it's available space.
Something. And it's beautiful in there.
Yeah.
But I think the other problem too is that a lot of people are working from home now, and I think there's a lot of businesses that are seeing, we can save all this money on rent and everything like that, and why are we gonna,
Right.
So that's also another
reuse.
Tim,
you might have the hardest job in Ulster County.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I think we've got a lot of hard jobs out there. Tony, your work is hard and critical too. Like, trying to connect people to these employment opportunities. I mean, this is a complicated,
it
process.
Is.
And so
it
I
definitely
think we need
is.
everybody kind of pulling in the same direction.
But I have to tell you, I'm encouraged because we continue to get companies calling us saying we needed this and we needed that, and do you have these and do you have that? And if I had 10 or 15 more of XYZ, I could fill those immediately, and it's just it's tough. I mean, I hate that I have to tell clients, look, we may or may not be able to help you. I hate to say that, but I'm not going to overpromise somebody.
Right.
And minimum wage is now $12.50, and companies are saying, well, we'd like to pay $13 an hour. I said, forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it. I said, you're competing with, unskilled, not in a derogatory way, but, you need to get your number up to 15, 16, 17.
Yep.
Minimum,
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think we talk a lot, so this is a subject that's really important to us at the county too, and you know this, Tony, but just for your listeners, our Office of Economic Development supports and works with our local businesses. So does our Office of Employment and Training, which is the unemployment
Thomasine
office.
Oliphant's great.
And so, I think there's a real need to start figuring out not just what do we need to train our workers on to be, competitive and to have, the right match with the skills that employers are looking for, but we also need to, quite frankly, help our employers understand that they're in a competitive market and they're going to have to pay more. And I know that that's hard, especially right now, but that's the reality of the marketplace right now, and trying to figure out how to support them to do that is a priority for us as well.
Yeah. No, it's great. Tim Wiedemann, thank you for being with us. You're going to be a monthly guest. So
I'm excited about that. I really like talking with you guys, and I'm sorry I kind of rambled on, but it's so much to cover. But we'll have time to do more in-depth stuff on.
That's great, and maybe at some point as the plague drops off here, you can come into the studio. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you on the phone too. It's easy. And as Val says, the world is going to change in terms of how we're doing business, and some of this is telephonic or, God forbid, Zoom.
God forbid Zoom.
Another Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah, tired
Lord,
of those.
love a duck. Tim, thank you so much for being with
Tim.
us. We're here to support you and do what we can and getting the word out, and
Absolutely.
whatever assistance you need, please don't hesitate to ask, and good luck in your role.
And congratulations.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Lawrence, you want to hit are we a little early for break? And then we'll come back with Brandon Arrow. Okay, great.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM. And also online at mykcr.org.
Someone in your town, at your school, or where you work is suffering from Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. They're dealing with excruciating pain and days when they can't even get out of bed. Chances are someone you know has Crohn's or colitis. Someone like me. I'm Amy Brenneman, and I'm asking you to support the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America to help millions of us cope and to find cures. Visit ccfa.org today to learn more. Help someone you know get back to their lives at ccfa.org.
Hi, this is Tony Marmo from Norman Staffing, and we've been bringing together employers and job seekers since 1980. If you're an employer and have job vacancies, let Norman Staffing help fill them with permanent or temporary workers. We screen, interview, and recommend the best candidates for your company. We make the employment process easier and faster for you. Please call Norman Staffing for your employment needs at 338-9111, 338-9111, or normanstaffing.com.
Think fast. In the short time it takes to listen to this message, a small flame can turn into a big fire. Several minutes more, and thick, poisonous smoke may have filled your lungs and reduced your ability to respond. Give it 5, and your entire home may be filled with flames.
Keep breathing. We got you.
Don't let your world go up in smoke. Have working smoke alarms and practice an escape plan for you and your loved ones. Learn more at usfa.fema.gov, because fire is everyone's fight.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
All right, folks. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to keep KCR alive with interesting programming, right? Yep. And this is only one of the programs 5 days a week, but this is Thunder Thursday.
Ba 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 boom.
For Flash. All right. We like it. We like it. All right. So we're joined this half hour by Brandon Errol, brother to Valerie. I don't know age difference here, but somebody's older than somebody.
Yeah.
And you'll disclose the age difference, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
So, and you're just two sibs, right?
No, we have another brother. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm the oldest.
Okay.
And Brandon is the youngest.
Okay.
And there is almost about 6.5 years between us. So,
okay,
yeah.
and the third one is in the middle of,
yes.
obviously.
They're 15 months apart.
15 months, okay.
My brother Ryan.
Almost like Irish twins.
Yeah. So, but we,
All right,
we've been, despite the age difference, we've always been very close. So, I asked my brother to come on here to share his story of drug addiction and recovery, particularly, again, and I know we spoke about this the last time, during the pandemic. We have a lot of mental health issues,
right.
And we're living in a county where services have been closed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important that we talk about awareness.
Absolutely.
So,
it's key.
So we're going to give my brother an opportunity to, tell his story.
Yeah.
I think it's something that impacts a lot of people in our community.
Great. Welcome.
So, yeah.
Welcome, Brandon.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I think, what would be helpful to everybody is just kind of start from the beginning and your childhood and how this all started.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Kingston. I was born and raised in Kingston. I grew up. I'm the youngest of three siblings. I come from a good family. I played sports growing up. I was very active. I was a good student. And, I remember growing up, I played three sports. And
which ones?
Basketball, baseball, and football. And, whatever, I remember my father used to tell me, whatever season it was that he'd ask me, and that was my favorite sport.
That is a true story. I was there.
And, I always, it's crazy because I always had a dream growing up. Kingston's big on football and
right.
Playing at Dietz Stadium on a Friday night.
Right, it's a big deal. Friday Night Lights, man.
Yeah, so I used to grow up and pretend that I was those guys, playing football, and it was something I looked forward to my whole childhood.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a little bit. But so around 8th grade, about 14 years old is when I was first introduced to drugs. I was at a party, and I was with two buddies. We were in the woods, and they were smoking weed, and it wasn't something that I could have taken it or leaving it, but I think at the age I was, and I felt the peer pressure, and I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to fit in, so I ended up doing it. And from there it was kind of just that's what people were doing, so that's what we did. And from there it escalated. I continued to play sports up through 9th grade, and then by 10th grade the marijuana use got a little bit more, and it turned into like an everyday thing, even at school. And by 11th grade, I was went down from 3 sports down to 2 sports. And I'll never forget, there was a morning. It was August 20th, 2001. I remember I woke up, and that was the day of varsity football tryouts, and. I'd been waiting for that day my whole
since
childhood.
You were, right.
And I woke up that morning, and I was already, didn't even know it, but I was already, deep into my drug addiction, because I woke up and I made the decision. I said, you know what? I don't want to play football this year. I'd rather have the free time so I can hang out and party. And, I still remember that morning like it was yesterday,
Mhm.
and, something I'll always regret that I never got to,
Right.
run out of the tunnel on a Friday night. And, from there, it just, things got progressively worse. I tried other drugs. I was hanging out with kids that I had no business being around. They were, 10, 12 years older than me as like a 17, 18-year-old. And like I was exposed to a lot of things. And,
Brendan, all along your parents and siblings had no idea?
No idea at all.
So you were pretty good at hiding.
Yeah, so that's one of the things with
You know?
addiction. Especially, it's a lot different today, but 20 years ago, I mean, I don't want to say it wasn't as accepted, but it wasn't as, people didn't know about, like the epidemic we have going
Is
on
it because of
today.
these things, maybe?
Yeah, that could be.
Lack of, I mean, nothing, everything now is taped, instant this, selfie, but back then, probably not.
Yeah, so
I think with the baseball thing, we took it, so he didn't play baseball because he had an injury. And so, he could have had a surgery to fix it, and he kind of said, no.
Yeah.
And so we kind of just took it as, okay. I mean, we were shocked. He wanted to stop playing, but we took it as, we missed all the signs. We missed all the signs. We didn't find out until 2013. So.
Yeah, so, growing up, it's tough because I was able to hide it so well, number one, because, I wanted to keep doing it. I was enjoying it. I was young. And the other thing is, the shame and the guilt I had, with my family and my good friends. Like, I didn't want to let them in and, them to find out how bad it really was. And, it's a scary place to be because I felt all alone. I didn't feel like I could go to anybody and talk about it.
Right.
As like a 17, 18-year-old kid, that's a difficult thing to do. And, so that escalated from there. I went to college. I dropped out of college twice because of drugs and alcohol.
So painkillers involved as well, or?
No, so
No.
the painkillers.
Not at this point, yeah.
Not at this point. So 18, 19 years old, it was basically alcohol and cocaine. As many days a week as I could. And, I was able to hide that too for many years. There were nights I'd be out all night and, I'd have to stay out because I couldn't go home because I was still messed up. And, my family knew that I drank. My friends knew I drank, but they had no idea to the extent to where it was going. And even in my own mind, I didn't feel that I had a problem because like I was still functional.
You were managing it, yeah.
Yeah, I was able to there were days where I would miss work here and there. I'd have to make up some crazy story, but I was able to hide it and get away with it. And a lot of that was because I isolated myself from my family. And that was to, keep my addiction going. So yeah, I moved on to my early 20s and, I did that, the alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and, I experimented with other drugs too. I did that till, I was 27 and it was.
What about college? Did you say college?
Yeah, so I ended up, I went to college. My first time I dropped out in.
Local or away?
I went to Ulster County Community College for a month and a half. I
Okay.
ended up dropping out there because of drugs. About a year and a half later, I went up to Albany and I did like a year and a couple months there. I came home.
Partying the whole time?
Partying the whole time, missed class, went, blew through thousands of dollars and,
And still no thought in the family that.
Well, at this time, I was in. Was I in Boston at the what time? What year would that have been?
2005, 2006.
Okay, so I was newly married.
So you were kind of starting your own life, and
I mean, well, and we knew, back then addiction. I feel like if this maybe had happened today, it would be a different story. But, my brother, my dad always said, and I would agree with him on this. He never felt as though he had to worry about my brother. My parents didn't. I mean, this is the kid, and I can remember this because I'm 6 years older than him. My dad would come home from work, and my brother would be sitting at the kitchen table, like, just completely into his homework, and my dad would be like, B, it's okay, like, calm down a little bit. I mean, he would just do homework for hours, straight A student. I mean, did I know he was smoking weed? Probably. But, a lot of my friends in high school, and I guess you just kind of think at that point when you're college age,
It's part of the scene.
It's part of the experience.
Right, part of the
You
scene.
know, you don't realize the path that this is going
Right.
to go down and what's going to happen.
Did your other brother have a clue at all?
No.
He-
So
he-
he moved out when he was about 18.
Okay. So
and
he
was actually, so he was up at school in Albany too. He lived in Troy though.
Yeah.
We went to the same school. We were in a lot of the same classes. And again, with the addiction comes the lying, you know, and
Right.
misleading
Storytelling
stuff.
and-
Yeah. So what happened was I ran out of money, so I couldn't party anymore.
Yeah.
So I told my family, I said, hey, you know, I'm not sure what I want to do with my life. I'm going to come home and continue to work for the family business.
Right.
Really in the back of my mind, I was flunking school and I had no money left to party. I didn't
Right.
want anything
So this
to do with
was
the
an
place.
escape.
Yeah. Yep, to come home, make money, and, you know, I was able to continue my thing.
Right.
Yeah, and so from there, it was in every, you know, I did it multiple times a week whenever I
Right.
could. And, you know, I remember I took my first painkiller when I was 27 years old. And, you know, I remember the
Oxy,
feeling.
like an Oxy?
Yeah, it was a Vicodin. And,
Vicodin,
you know, I remember the feeling and, you know, at the time I could take it or leave it. And then I had my wisdom teeth pulled and I got a prescription. And I remember I had those for, you know, they lasted all week. And I remember just all week, I mean, you know, I was like, this is great. You know, this is how I want to feel all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, not too long after that is when I got plugged into the community, the side of, you know, the drugs and the drug dealers and this and that. And, you know, I was able to get them. And, you know, once opiates, you know, they entered my system, that was all that mattered. I mean,
game
the
changer.
alcohol, cocaine, all the other drugs
Forget
came
that.
second. All my responsibilities, work, my whole life revolved around it. That's all that mattered. You know, whether it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether I was getting high, whether I was trying to figure out a way to get money to get high, whether I was, you know, physically dope sick from not having them, you know.
And at that point, you're living in
stealing.
Kingston still?
I'm still, yep. So I'm back in Kingston,
And still under some cover of, no one
I'm
really
able to-
knew,
so
but
I'm-
saw maybe a little bit of signs and symptoms.
So
were-
you were 29 when we found out, and
I want to hear him tell that story about how. I'm curious.
about how we found out.
Yeah.
Or
What? Yeah.
Okay, so what happened was I had moved in. I was living with like 4 other friends at a place up Linderman Avenue. We moved. That's where the addiction really took off. I had been laid off. Work had been slow. I had lost my license. I had a second DWI at this point. I lost my license, and I was home, you know, basically all year for the most part by myself. You know, through no fault of my family, they had stuff going on at the business, and you know,
Right.
they're none the wiser because I'm hiding it the best you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm doing, you know, everything
Right.
to protect my addiction, and yeah, it's so I moved up. I ended up buying my grandmother's house from her, and you know, at this point, it had gotten really bad, and to the point where, you know, I turned to selling drugs. You know, I had to sell
Sheesh.
drugs to feed my addiction.
Right.
You know,
To generate
and,
money.
Yep. And I remember it was around September, is my brother's birthday, and we had all gone to dinner, and I'd been up all weekend, and you know, I was supposed to be at dinner at like say 6 o'clock. And 6:30, 7 o'clock rolls around. I'm nowhere to be found, and they're calling me, texting me, and I'm not answering.
this is where the signs started coming out around this time. Like,
Right.
you know, he's late, he's going outside, he's absent,
bathroom all
going to the
Something
bathroom
wrong,
a
yeah.
lot.
There's
Like
something wrong.
something's not right. Something's not right at this point.
So they finally got a hold of me. You know, I said I'm going to lay down on the couch for like 10 minutes, take a cat nap, I'll get up and go. You know, like 2 hours later,
Knocked
I
out.
finally show up to dinner, and I mean, I remember they told me, they were like, you were going, you know, you were there, but you weren't there. We could tell.
Yeah.
And again, I'm thinking that they have no idea what's going on. So they knew something was up. The next day, my parents had a key to my house. My mother went into my house, you know, and she found, you know,
Yeah.
They found a scale, you know, bagged up cocaine, pills, Suboxone, the whole nine.
Yeah.
And so that day after work, you know, they asked me to come to the house, and I had no idea what was up. You know, I thought.
Did you have an inkling? Like none,
no.
zero.
Yeah, nothing. Wow. And because I thought I hit everything so well.
And you did hide it very well. I felt like I was on an episode of CSI.
Yeah.
I really did. I outsmarted you. I mean, but
Right.
this is the length. I think it's important. This is the length that
The addiction takes you.
Yeah.
And I remember I got to the house that day, and my whole family were sitting in the den, and you know, they said, Brandon, you know, what's going on? What's wrong? And I still
Try to BS your way around it.
Yeah, and they're like, listen, Brandon, like, you know, we went into your house, we found all this stuff, like, what's going on? And I remember I got up and I ran out of the house, and you know, where
You were angry or just?
I was
you
scared,
ju-
man.
yeah,
I was
you were
scared.
just
I didn't.
you
Yeah,
were
I didn't know
caught.
what was
You
going to
were
happen. You know,
basically
I didn't know
caught.
what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was difficult. I remember I ran down to the stream and then Saco Road is on the other side of the stream, and like I was so scared, I didn't know what was going to happen. I remember at that point, like I was contemplating jumping in front of a car on Saco Road and ending my life because like I thought
you didn't want to.
Yeah, that
go
was
through
it.
what was.
Yeah, and you know,
about
I
to
thought
happen.
I let my family down, like they
Right.
were going to disown me, like they're, you know,
Right.
that's just where my mind went. And you know, after that, they got me back up and we talked, and I ended up going to my first treatment center in Torrington, Connecticut.
Mhm.
And you know, for me, I went there and like going in there, I had no idea what an addict or an alcoholic was. You know, I was stereotypical, like you have to be homeless or pushing a shopping cart, and
Right.
you know, I had no idea the power of the addiction. And I remember I got there and I learned a lot about the disease, and it finally answered my question, where there were plenty of nights where I'd be with my friends partying, and it was like, you know, they'd be doing the last line and they'd be like, all right, we're going to go lay down. And I'm like, I couldn't stop. You know, and I didn't understand why it was like that. And, you know, after going to my first treatment and learning, you know, now it kind of clicked. And I remember I did 30 days there, and, you know, they told me about the AA program, you know, to go home, get plugged in.
AANA?
AANA, yep. And, you know, I took, again, I didn't understand the power of the disease. And it turned out the day I got home, they told me the first thing to do was go to a meeting. Well, I didn't do that, and I was high that night. Literally, basically, as soon as I walked in my house, I was high.
Weed or back to pills?
Back to pills. Weed first, and then that night back to pills. And after that, I went on like a 3 or 4 month run before I actually got into the rooms. And you know, then
Back to the addiction.
Back to the addiction.
Yeah.
Yep. And you know, I put a little bit of time together. I wasn't able, for the next, you know, 3 or 4 years, I wasn't able to get more than 3 or 4 months at a time, and then I would go back out.
Sober, yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it was right back to, again, the pills and the opiates came first. Everything else came second. And, you know, 2016, I went away again to my second treatment center in October. And towards the end of that was when the heroin came into play. And, you know, it's...
So you'd been to your first set of treatments, you kind of knew what was going on, you knew why it was happening, but the addiction is so strong and powerful that it just sucked you back into it.
Back into the life. That's all I knew, you know?
Right.
And I remember it gets to a point where it's difficult because the pills, there's only so many pills around, you know, once they run out and you're physically and mentally dependent on them, like you physically.
Yeah, you'll do just
And
about.
the financial aspect, how much is one pill?
I mean, you're talking $30. You could go through, you know, 6, 7, 10 pills a day. I mean, you're talking
Oh my
about
God.
$100 a day, have it. And so that's when I turned to the heroin. It was more accessible and
Right, cheaper. Right.
And, you know, from the pills, I was able to keep it, you know, somewhat.
Right.
Like
in check.
Once I did heroin, it was, the downfall was about a month, and that was
Yeah.
it. And they knew right away something was going on.
Right.
So that's when I went to my second treatment center. I stayed there for another month, came home, stayed sober for, you know, 3 or 4 months, and then I was back
to
off
heroin.
running again. Yeah, back to pills and heroin, whatever I could get. And, you know, that went on for probably another 6 or 7 months, and then I overdosed for the first time in July of 2017. And, you know, I remember when I came to, I woke up in the hospital, and I was like, I can't believe it happened to me. I can't believe I overdosed, because in my mind, it was.
You had it in control.
Yeah,
you
and
knew what you were doing.
I'm never going to overdose because I don't shoot it. I only sniff it. That doesn't happen to people. And
Ironically, he had gone to someone saying, I need help. I need to go into treatment. And when he went home to get his things to be brought to the hospital, he said, basically the last hurrah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're driving down Foxhall Avenue, and
that's
when
passed
he
out or
overdosed.
Yeah. And that's a scary thing about the heroin is you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, right.
It's people lace it with the fentanyl, and sometimes it's
You're right.
It's scary. You don't know what you're getting. And so after that, I remember when I came to out of the overdose, and at that moment, the first thing I thought of was my family. And, I was like, what would have happened if I never,
Right.
if I had died, and, their lives are changed.
When you OD'd, were you with somebody or in the car?
So I was with a
in the
couple.
car on the way to rehab.
Yeah,
on the way to the rehab
detox. I was
detox.
in the car with a couple buddies who I met through the program and through my family.
So they knew immediately what was going on with you.
Yep.
And they took you to the hospital, or they
I
had
mean,
Narcan, or what?
No, they didn't. And honestly, if it weren't for those two guys, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
They didn't Narcan you?
At
The
the
hospital
hospital,
they
they
Narcan.
did.
Yeah, but not the guys. Yeah, I mean, not how many people carry Narcan in their back pocket?
I carried my purse.
We have it.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
And so when I came to, I swore to myself, I was like, wow, that was scary. Like, I almost lost my life. And I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm never doing it again. And if you hooked me up to a lie detector test, I would have passed. I truly believe that was it. I went away to treatment again, and I did long-term. And after 3 months.
Long-term is 3 months.
Well, no, at 3 months in. So I went to rehab for a month, and I went to a halfway house.
Okay, right.
And about 3 months in, I actually found my roommate overdosed in the bathroom, and he was dead. And 2 days later, I relapsed, and I was able to stay at the treatment center. And
Despite the relapse, they let you stay there?
Yeah, yep. So
not the halfway house, back to the treatment
center. No, back
center.
to the treatment center.
Yeah.
And I went back to the halfway house, and I stayed there for another about 3 months, and then I came home in the spring. And I did okay for a little bit, and then I went back. I was struggling again, and October of 2018. I had my second overdose, and for whatever reason, so I had done it at my house, and stupidly I got in my car and I was driving up to Lowe's, and the only thing I remember is I'm driving. I went the back way, and right behind the mall, I remember getting dizzy and not. I said something's not right, and the next thing I knew, I woke up on the ground in the parking lot of Lowe's. My shirt had been cut off. I hit a parked car. Thank God nobody was hurt. And I remember I woke up on the ground, and I was like, I can't believe this happened again. And at that point in my life, I went to the hospital, and the following day, my family was in there and a couple of friends, and they were trying to get me into treatment, begging me. And I honestly, at that point, man, I'd given up. I didn't want anything. I didn't want to be alive.
You felt like you had no control at that point.
Yeah, and I said, I'm gonna die a drug addict, and that's gonna be it. I had no hope. And again, I was scared, man. Like I felt alone. I felt like there was nobody I could turn to, and it comes with the addiction, the isolation. I don't want to talk about anything to anybody. Like I have a hard time reaching out for help, and again, I didn't do anything. My family and a couple of friends got me into a treatment center out in Massachusetts, and I basically told myself, like, I have one more shot at this. I was, through the grace of God, like I lived through 2 overdoses. I said the third one, if I keep using, it's eventually going to happen again. And the only question is are people going to be around to help me or save me?
Right.
And so I went out there for treatment. I stayed at the rehab.
What's the one in Massachusetts you went to?
Heron Wellness.
Heron Wellness.
Yeah. 3 or 4 months I went out there, and then I stayed at the sober house there afterwards. And I was out there probably almost a year and a half. And
working and
yeah. I worked out there, and I actually worked for the facility, and then I came home in February. And
This is February 19 now? No.
Right before the month before the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay.
So February 14th. I actually came home Valentine's Day of 2020, and I came home, and it helped me to be away that long. Like it's tough. It's tough to, when you have a disease like this, to go away for 2 weeks or 30 days.
Right.
I've been using since I was 14 years old.
Right.
I'm not going to fix anything in 30 days. So I needed the long-term treatment. And, I got home, and no less than a month later, I lost my best friend to this disease. He died. And, ever since then, it's like, it's a difficult thing to do. It's like, a daily basis. I have to be on top of it. Because it only takes one slip up, and that could be the end. So
well,
it's
look. I thank you for having Brennan here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a compelling story, and you're from a great family, and it means that substance abuse can touch anybody. I likened it to cancer. People from good families get cancer. People from good families have, substance abuse issues, and it's a battle that you fight, and people can't help you almost. Everybody tries to help, right? But you can't. At the end of the day, you have to figure it out. But
so one of the scariest parts about addiction is you never know who's going to have it, and it doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if
white, black, green, pink, money, no money.
And the other thing is, you're not going to get sober unless I had all the love and support in the world, and they wanted, and I didn't get sober until I was ready to.
Right. And thank God you survived, the 2 overdoses. And I think getting your message out is great. I mean, my guess is that it helps you, right? Just doing this half hour with us, recounting that whole that difficult part of your life and hiding it has got to be make you feel good, from the sense that you potentially can help somebody else, or you're now in a position to say, hey man, I have been down that path, and here's where it ends.
He does, so it's funny you say that, because he has been working with youth in the community.
Great.
Who are
Awesome, man.
who are at risk, I guess.
Yeah.
And also I have an email into the superintendent of schools, because he had expressed an interest of going to the health classes and.
Right. Rotary started, and I'm very involved in Rotary. We didn't start it, but we helped fund the drug awareness and resistance education. The DARE program, which was the predecessor to SROs.
When we were growing up.
Predecessor. But so I guess, the point is, since you've walked miles in your shoes, you can better relate to somebody, I think, that's going through what you went through, right? And I don't know what the right words are for those people, but 2x4 in the head, I don't know. So, Brandon, thank you. And I mean, this is great. What are you doing now for work-wise?
So I work at a restaurant, Savona's, downtown in Kingston. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep, and I'm going back to school.
Good.
To be a drug and alcohol counselor.
Right. Danny Savona is amazing.
Yeah.
By the way,
actually, if it weren't for Danny Savona, I wouldn't be alive today.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. So, I love Danny. So, good. If I pop in there, I'll say hi to you. Okay. But, thank you for coming on. This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you for suggesting this.
Absolutely.
Really,
Thanks for coming.
And hopefully our listeners, this also is going to be, the show gets put on YouTube. So if anybody wants to, look at it again, you want to listen to it again, maybe you should. Because the story is certainly compelling. And as I said, I know your mom and dad, and Val's great, and it can happen to anybody, but there's support out there, there's help, there's, but you got to do it yourself. Yeah. Right, Brandon?
As long as you want the help, people are willing to help you.
Absolutely.
You're ready to take the steps.
All right. Thanks, folks, for listening to KCR. Have a great weekend. Be well, be safe, love each other, and go help somebody less fortunate.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Be kind.
Be kind to everybody. Yep. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you for sharing the morning with us and